Good morning. Today I'm going to be showing you how to change the CV boot, outer CV boot, on a Ford Fiesta on an S plate, although this could equally apply to pretty well any Fiesta and a lot of front wheel drive cars of this age and type. First thing you need to do is to undo this nut that's in the centre of the drive shaft. Best to do it while the car is on the ground and you have the weight of the car to help you. The socket, by the way, is a 1 1/4 inch, seems to be the tightest fit. There may well be a metric equivalent, and a breaker bar. Make sure the handbrake's on or the car is chocked. I've chocked the car with an old rubber mallet. And there we are. One turn should be sufficient. Now we have to jack the car up. Obviously it makes sense to undo the wheel nuts before we start jacking the car up. But again, just undo them sufficiently to get them started. That should be enough. Well, I've jacked the car up. Before we do anything in or around the car, axle stand. I should place the axle stand underneath the subframe. Always think safety before anything else. Now, let's remove the wheel. Right, now we've removed the road wheel. There are two more things to undo here. The track rod end on the steering and the lower ball joint. Because I'm not sure of sizes, because this is the first time for me as well, I have brought a selection of spanners and sockets. And I think we'll find that this one under here is a 15mm. Track rod end is a 15mm, and the lower ball joint nut appears to be a 17. So first things first, we shall remove the nut. To make this job easier, you may wish to squirt this component before attempting to undo it. You also may want to use an air ratchet. I can't use an air ratchet at the moment because my compressor's not working. So we are stuck with the old-fashioned method. So, nearly there. $15mm. Right, now we need to split the end of the track rod with the steering arm on the hub. If you haven't got one of these, get yourself one of these. But it advises you to lubricate the forks first to reduce the risk of damaging the boot. As the boot is an MOT-able item now, it makes sense to protect it. And out it comes. boot's intact. Gives you a chance to check any play in the track rod. This one feels fine. Now we have a flexible unit that we can work with. We do need to access the nut, which is on the ball joint at the bottom here, and as I said, I believe that's a 17. I said believe because this is a learning experience for me as well, and it's not. It's more likely an 18. So let's check an 18 on it. It's more than an 18, but it's not a 17. It is a 17. Right, undo the bottom ball joint, and we should be into it. What could make it awkward for you is at the other end of the bolt that holds the lower ball joint is held by a Torx bolt. Again, if you haven't got yourself a set of Torx, get yourself a set. This is a size. This is a size 40. No, 45. Size 45 Torx bit on the adapter. So we'll hold one end. If you find the head of the Torx is full of dirt and detritus, clean it out first, otherwise you could damage either the head of the bolt or your Torx bit. This one's quite free, and I imagine it's quite free for one reason only, is that oil leaking from the CV joint has saturated this area and helped us by forming an oil. There we go. Before we go any further, let's finish undoing the hub nut. You might find, to make this job a little easier, you might want to remove the caliper and the disc. I'm thinking we don't need to. Thinking. Now we tap out the lower bolt, and we attach it to its nut. Now, with a bit of luck, and a bit of brute force, it should come free. What you could do is give everything a liberal squirt. Make the job a little bit easier for you. Particularly if you've even components that you may not be removing at a squirt, because you never know, you might end up removing them. Okay, so let's it's moving, but not very quickly. Right, okay, this is where you need your faithful pry bar. This is a very big breaker bar, pry bar, really meant for taking apart pallets and packing cases, but I've rested it across the top of the lower wishbone underneath a rail, and we can then pull out the ball joint. Pardon me. And if we're gentle, we want to do is you want to remove the drive shaft. But it's likely to be very stubborn. This is where you may want to remove other things, such as the roll bar top linkage. Should be a 17. Let's soon find out. 17. Okay, 17. This may not want to undo. If you do end up damaging it, they're not expensive. And of course it doesn't want to turn. And if this is an original Ford drop link, there probably won't be anywhere on the back to hold it. So, what do we do? Let's see what we do. Get yourself a pair of fine nosed mole grips that'll reach behind the shaft. And that might be sufficient. No, not sufficient. A bit tighter then. Right. Here she comes. Right. Where were we? Large washer. And off she is. There we go. Whew. Bit tricky. There's a little bit of rust on the shaft there. Okay. Now this is going to get very messy, this wall. So get some paper towel or some blue roll or whatever you've got to hand, or an old towel of some kind. We're going to have to cut the bands that secure the remains of the joint. What you need now, cut the inner band. Inner band cut. Be ready with a paper towel to wipe away any rust or dirt around the joint. I'll try and keep the joint as clean as possible. To remove the old joint, it may, if we're very lucky, I'm going to cut the boot. Let's cut the boot all the way through. That way we can see what we're doing. We'll need the old boot to get the right size boot out of the kit, if you have a kit. If you haven't, hopefully you've got the right size boot to start with. Boot is completely split. It's been split for some time. Been spraying grease all over the joints, which, as I say, I think has helped us a little bit with some of the fastenings. that remains the old boot. We'll need that to get the size. Clean up the shaft. You might find, if you're very lucky, that you'll be able to split the shaft. But I'm not sure if this is one of those. No. We just risk making more mess in the joint. Okay. We'll replenish the CV boot grease in here. We'll put some grease in here, some constant velocity grease. Feel the joint feels okay. Let's see if we can get a boot on. When you're ordering a boot for your Fiesta, get the right boot. Me, I bought a kit, and I assumed it would come with all the same size boot, but it doesn't. It comes with 10 different sizes. Some big, some small. And because you have to check the size against a pretty grubby boot, it's quite difficult to... Remember, we want to minimise the amount of work we're having to do to fit this. So we're going to use, I reckon, a medium sized boot. Most boots will fit anyway, you'll find. That looks closer to what we have already. That looks too big. It's very difficult to find the right size boot. You don't want this to hold you up, really, do you? That's too big. Right. Fun and games with CV boots. Well, if I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't have believed it. We've got the small end of the cone, the joint, over this cone. We're now going to slip it over the end of the CV joint, and there we go. You can tell that was the first time for me. That did look quite painful, but it worked. The boot is now on the joint. Let's grease it and put it back together. Okay, we've got some constant velocity grease here. Nasty grey, unpleasant looking stuff. Put that in the joint. Right, keeping our hands clean. Just more of the roll. Clean around the joint so we get a good tight seal. And you might find it works better if you put the band around the bigger end first. That's what we should do. Bigger end first. There. New boot fitted. I've used cable ties because I've never had a problem with them, and I don't have a tool for the special metal ones. One day I will have one. Your only problem you might find is having a cable tie big enough for the outer end of the joint and a cable tie small enough for the inner joint. Hence I've got two different colours here. But that will hold, no problem. Clean up the boot. It's got to look good for the MOT tester after all. And now you might want to do is clean up the drive on the half shaft to make it easier to disassemble in the future.